Hi everybody, I just wanted to post a little video because over on my YouTube channel I posted this photo with a speed retouch of how I did all the stages, but obviously very quickly. And had a question from Liam Schultz about how I got the glow on these lights here, on these two lights. You can see just over in the layers panel over here, just turning them on and off, you can see the difference that makes. And it's a brilliantly simple technique that I actually learned from a brilliant instructor and friend, Glyn Dewis. I'll post his details because he has so many tutorials on Photoshop and Lightroom and how to get the best out of them. So this is just a brilliantly simple thing. So if I'll turn them on, I'll turn them off just for the moment. And then all you have to do really is very simple. All I do is come down to the bottom here and create a new blank layer. I'm just going to drag that back up to where my lens flares are going to be. And what we do is we make a lens flare. But unfortunately, in a blank layer, you can't make a lens flare on nothing. You have to have some pixels there. So, brilliantly, what we can do is if we go to Edit and Fill up here, or use the shortcut Shift F5, we can fill that layer with 50% grey. So, that just fills the whole thing with 50% grey, and because our blend mode up here is set to normal, it just covers the whole lot and we can't see anything. But now we're here, we can make our lens flare. Now, lens flares in Photoshop, you can tell 90% of the time that they are Photoshop lens flares, and they don't look great. However, this is one technique where I love using lens flares. So, if we go up to the top and go to the Filter menu, and then go down to Render and Lens Flares, it then gives us a few options of what kind of lens flares. Now, I always drag the center point of my lens flare away from the middle, because you see in the bottom right hand corner of here, you can see the extra bits of the lens flare. So if that's right in the middle, you get all of that, and I don't really want that. I just really want a bright spot. So I usually just draw it to the corner, drag it to the corner even. And then you can change your brightness or your lens flare types depending on what sort of thing you like. I'm just going to stick with the 50 to 300mm zoom. And I'm also going to bring up the brightness because that's just going to give us a bit of a brighter glow. And we can change the opacity later to decide how glowy that happens to be. So I'm going to take that to about 141% and click OK. And so you now can see that on this grey layer we have that lens flare. And that's fine, but the problem is we can't see our picture and that's not really doing anything. But brilliantly simple, just by changing one blend mode we can fix it. So if you go up to the blend modes, we're still selected on our grey layer that now has the lens flare. Go up to blend modes and just pick overlay. And now you can still see the lens flare, but it's now over our image, and you can in fact see where the line is of that lens flare, because I think I just moved it, and you can move that around now. And you can see wherever the center spot is, wherever that bright spot is over the image, it kind of just brightens it up a little bit. So we can choose whereabouts we want that to be. Now we just want that bright spot over our light, but we don't want it this big. So we're going to shrink it down. So using the shortcut Command T, it gives you the free transform. And if I hold Shift and Alt, I can grab it from the corner and just bring it right down. And then I'm just trying to put, you can still see that bright spot, I just want to put that bright spot over the light. I think I might bring it down a little bit more, maybe like that. Find the right place, press enter to select that, and now you can see as we turn that on and off, you can see that makes a big difference to that whole area. It just glows that whole area up. But we don't really want, you can kind of faintly see down here, the rest of the lens flare. But we don't want that. We just want a nice glow just around that light. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to add a layer mask. And there are two ways of doing this. I'll show you them both. And the first one is we're going to use a gradient layer mask, a radial gradient. So I press G to go to the gradient, or it's over here on the menu bar. If you have the paint bucket tool, just press and hold on that, click and hold, and then select the gradient tool. And we want our colours to be black to white, which is fine, and then we want to select this second one along, which is the radial gradient, not linear gradient, but radial gradient. And then making sure over on the right in the layers panel we're selected on our layer mask, and our foreground on the left, sorry we're switching left and right a lot, is set to white. We can then, from the centre of our light, just drag down and out, and what you can see now, you can see from this layer mask, it's just, I mean, you can't really see it very well. If I press Alt, there we go, that's much better. If I press Alt and click on that, it just shows you what the layer mask is doing. It's now just done a perfect circle that kind of nicely goes out as you go along. So what that's done is if I turn this layer on and off, it's just made a nice glow just around that light. So that's one way of doing it, using the radial gradient. The other way of doing it, I'm just going to delete this layer mask, add another layer mask that's got nothing. This time I'm just going to take a brush. I'm going to change the size of my brush. I'm going to put the opacity back up just for the moment. And all we're going to do is just paint in black. Black is the bits that we don't want to see. So I pressed X to change this to the foreground colour to black, or you can just click the arrow here to change between them. So we want our foreground to be black, and all we do is just paint over the areas that we don't want. And so we don't want, up here, realistically, this light is not jutting out enough to be able to get this roof. So we don't really want that. So I'm just going to change that brush height, and we're just going to paint that little bit out. It's certainly not going to reach down round the side of the building, and you can see this horrible hard edge of that, so we definitely don't want that. And so then we can just paint out all the bits that we don't really want, until we have a nice kind of gently realistic glow of what we think that light glow would do. So if we turn that on and off, you can see, okay, so I missed a bit. It's quite good turning it on and off. I do an awful lot to see the difference that things have made. It's even still affecting. If we click Alt and click on that again, we can see where, obviously, because our canvas bit is only this sort of size, we don't need to paint in the whole area. But I'll probably just paint over all this just to make sure that it's not getting any of that thing here. So I click Alt, or hold Alt, and click on the layer mask. And there we have it. That's looking a little bit garish there. But what we can do is we can just turn down the opacity. So next to the blend mode where it says overlay, we can just turn that down to something a little bit gentler. We turn that on and off, and you can see, sorry, I keep on catching the layer above, you can see the difference that makes. I'm not quite sure I like how much. What I'm going to do is just, with my brush, I'm going to change the opacity of my brush down to maybe 36%. And I'm just going to very gently paint over that white. I don't want it all to go, but I just don't want it quite so obvious there. And to do the same for the other light, it's more than simple. You don't have to go through all those procedures again. All you have to do is, well, you can do it in two ways. You can either click and hold on that layer and drag it down to the new layer, and that duplicates the layer. So you can see it's now doubled up on that one. But I'm just going to delete that. My preferable is just pressing Command J, and that again just duplicates. And all you do is go to your Move tool up here, make sure, or the shortcut for that is V, and just drag it over to the other light. And you can actually see where it hasn't worked. We'll have to fix up the layer mask a little bit for that one. So we'll just click on our layer mask again, make sure our colour's selected as black, make sure we're on a brush. I'll turn my opacity back up a little bit. And just kind of paint over that to make sure that works. I'm just going to put these two in a layer, in a group. So what I'm doing, I'm selecting both of them by pressing on one, holding Shift and clicking on the other. And then I'm still holding Shift, and then I click down on this group. And what that does, it puts them both, everything you selected then, into a group. And so they're nicely here, so I can now turn those on and off. And it's literally that simple. Now I've got that nice little glow there. You can change the opacity of it all, you can change the opacity of the group, you can change the layer masks, obviously, and you can just move them around. So if you don't like exactly where that right hand one is, you just select the right hand one, which is not that one, which is this one. Make sure you're on the Move tool by pressing V or clicking up in the top left corner, and then you can just move where that bright spot is and just change the layer mask. So two ways of adding the layer mask, just a really brilliant, simple technique for getting that nice glow around the lights that you might not ordinarily get. What I didn't say at the beginning is that originally the lights were on, so the very original lights was this. So you can see that the lights were on. These patterns were there automatically. They were just caused by the light casing, I guess. So we've just enhanced and so I wasn't adding light from absolute nothing, but I was just very much enhancing that light nicely, just by adding that glow around. So, I hope that helps, Liam. If anyone else has got any questions, then feel free to put a comment in one of the videos, or put a comment over on my Facebook page, which is facebook.com/MacMacPhotography, MAC. Anyway, until next time, have a great day.